How's it going, guys? My name is Stone, and welcome to these reviews. Today, I'm going to be talking about another Genesis album, one that represents a completely different era for the band, and that is clearly Abacab. This was released in 1981 and sees the band moving in a much more accessible and pop-oriented direction that I believe still carries a small sense of experimentation and edge that the Gabriel era had. I also find this track listing to be some of the most melodic and creative stuff written by the trio of Banks, Rutherford, and Collins, as the shiny 80s production really enhances the quality of these songs and polishes them very effectively. Now, I'm aware that around this time, a lot of Genesis fans were disappointed in this transition from prog to pop, but I, for one, was intrigued by it. I will admit, however, that the albums that came out after this aren't nearly as consistent as the albums that came before. Not saying that there isn't any good songs, but for me, I feel like that's where things go off the rails a little. But to be on a positive note, I do think that records like this and Duke show how they could combine progressive rock with some pop sensibilities and just write great pop hooks in general. They introduced this new side of the band very well with the rampaging title track, Abacab, a 7 minute song that features some of the trio's best jamming, especially near the latter half. The vocals and melody by Collins really set the stage for the style he would sing in this point forward, both in Genesis and in his solo career. And I also think that this song features some of Tony Banks' best keyboard work, as it's so easy to get lost in, especially in the last 4 minutes of the track. I don't think any of the other songs on this album would have been as good of an opener, so I'm really glad they chose this because this song slaps hard and really gets you into the mood of this record, I'd say. Following that is the first single from Abacab, No Reply, which you can argue is the most pop-oriented song on here. It features a fantastic horn section provided by Earth, Wind, and Fire, and is probably one of the best vocal melodies on the album. I should mention that um, Sorry. I should mention that the bridge of the song was also very nice, and I love how it goes straight into the final verse. And I can imagine that this song rubbed people the wrong way upon first listen, since it's not Supper's Ready or The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. But even then, I still think it's some great pop music that can easily get stuck in your head, like it did to me at least. We then arrive at was possibly my favorite track on this album, Me and Sarah Jane. This is one of two songs on Abacab that I find to be some of their best and most progressive music from the 80s. It has such a unique yet catchy progression to it that never allows a dull moment to show. And these little movements that happen throughout the song are seamlessly placed together in a way that you could definitely argue is progressive, even if it has some pop sensibilities here and there. And as much as I do want to point out a specific moment in the song I like, it's really difficult to decide because all of it just works together so well, and I feel that its musical pieces create an illusion that is just so grand and just as abstract as the cover, I might say. So, yeah, one of my favorites. I feel like it's one of the songs that older fans could get into the most. That and another one later on. We then close side one with another deep cut that even older fans actually appreciate, which is Keep It Dark. This song has an odd yet impeccable groove to it that's provided by Banks and Rutherford, and another great vocal performance by Collins. That includes some nice falsettos by him, which I really like. I also love how this song could sound like a straightforward pop song if it wasn't for Genesis adding that minor twist to it, which makes it much more similar to art rock than progressive rock, if anything. But at the end of the day, as much as I love throwing these subgenre terms, it's just good music. So, I don't know. I love Keep It Dark, and I do think it's a good way to end side one. When side two, on the other hand, opens in one of the best ways possible with Dodo Lurker just slamming those keys in your face. This is the second song I mentioned to be as progressive or something an older fan might appreciate. And I consider it, like I said, one of the heaviest tracks they ever wrote. It has some explosive and groovy keys to it, as well as another amazing drum performance. Side 2 doesn't really let up on its melodies either, as the Dodo section carries a beat just as strong and just as thrilling as the title track, I'd say. I imagine the song would be a lot of fun for Collins to sing and dance along to on stage, at least for a Genesis fan myself, that would kill to try to sing the song on stage. But I also enjoy how in the lurker section of the song it features some bright keyboard textures and another great vocal performance by Collins that really concludes the, I guess you could say, the suite on a rather harmonious note. I'm aware that there was two other parts of this song that was cut out because they were trying to avoid, I guess, being too progressive. May not the best way to put it, but I wonder how they'd sound because I think this version is just as great, and I wonder if those other two parts of the song slowed it down at all. But yeah, whether or not, it's a great song. um, but as that fades away, we then get to Gasp, was considered to be one of the worst, if not the worst Genesis song, Who Done It. Now, if you also expect me to roast this song, you are wrong, because I actually really like it. I get that it's not the most creative song that the band had ever written, but I do think that they capture the sense of punk rock that they were trying to go for, just in their own way, I think. One of the things that usually turns me off when it comes to either reviewing or listening to music is just a repetitive nature that is maybe not necessary and just maybe annoying towards the end or filler, in my opinion. But I think this song uses its repetition to its advantage, as it makes it very easy for it to get stuck in people's heads, or at least in my head. Some of my favorite aspects about the song include the drum work, as always, and my favorite bit probably would be when he's saying, I didn't do it, like just kind of going off that. I think that's, I don't know, I find some melody in that. Understand, like I said, why people would be annoyed with this track, but I do believe there are far more awful songs by this one, or than this one. And honestly, you can argue, I think there's worse songs in the Genesis catalog after this album. But that's for another video. With that said, we do come to, or we arrive at the last three tracks of the album, which most Genesis fans seem to dismiss as them selling out to like the pop crowd, which I couldn't disagree with. Oh, I could disagree with, that's what I'm trying to say. Because I find them to be a great trilogy of Genesis songs that, while they are pretty poppy, I think they really work as a great, like I said, trilogy of songs that close the album out well. It begins with the Collins written track, Man on the Corner, which I really love. I enjoy how moody and ponderous it is with its lyrics and its music, especially in the keyboard textures. Yeah, it still has that 80s production, which gives it a rhythm you can almost dance to. And I can't stress enough on how wonderful Phil's vocals are on this track, especially near the latter half when he really begins to belt it out. But it's hard to compare that to the next song when, like it or not, the Rutherford track that follows it features probably one of Phil's best vocal performances in Genesis. This has to be one of the best pop songs that they ever wrote, and it's a shame that it doesn't really get the attention it deserves. It just has such a bombastic production that really enhances Collins' vocals more than it even needs to, because they're already incredible. And the drum fills as well are just classic Phil, and it's just so much fun to like do air drum to, because it's something easier rather than like, I don't know, the cinema show trying to air drum to that. But I'd easily consider this to be a highlight on the album, as it just is so uplifting overall and so much fun to listen to. And with that, we conclude the trilogy and the album with another personal favorite of mine, Another Record. I really love how moody the intro is, even if it doesn't really pertain to the rest of the music on the song. And I love how different the drumming arrangement is on here. It's just a little peculiar in my opinion, but it really drives the song in a nice direction, I'd say. And the vocal melody as well is fantastic. It closes the album out on such a satisfying note, with the last minute of the song suggesting to the listener that they go on and put another record because they know they'd like it. And I couldn't agree with them more in how right they are to make that assumption. Is it another Genesis album? I don't know, depending on where you stand with them, I guess. So while Abacab is an album that generally divides fans into two different camps, I think that it receives much more hate than it actually deserves, as it does show the band writing a good pop album that still infuses some prog characteristics, making it a consistent and great listening experience all the way through. That is, if you don't like Whodunit. In that case, you would have to like put the needle over that song, which I guess I wouldn't blame you. I'm not saying it's the greatest song ever. I'm just saying it's not that bad. But my favorite four songs, if I had to pick four, would probably be Abacab, Me and Sarah Jane, Dodo Lurker, and Like It or Not. if I could pick an honorable mention, it would probably be Another Record, because that song slaps. It was going to be my top 4, but honestly, like it or not, it's just too fantastic. I could not have that up there. And then if I had to choose a favorite side, I'd probably choose side 1 just because it's a little... I mean, this is a great album all the way through, so it's hard to pick a side. But I think it just, the longer pieces on the song work together well. And I like how they have Abacab and me and Sarah Jane on the same side. So yeah. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on this album. I'll kind of show this off a little. Not like there's much to show, but it's an original pressing. I wanted to wait until I could find the original colors because I think it looks better. And I'm glad I did. Because yeah, this record sounds fantastic. It's one of my favorites to play. I like this photo of the band. Looking edgy, mysterious. Yeah. Like I said, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. I'd love to know if you like this album more than Trespass or other way around, because it's tough to choose which album I like more, because I started off with Trespass, so that album will have a special place in my heart, but at the same time, this album just keeps getting better and better the more I listen to it, so it's definitely difficult to decide. I hope to find an answer in the comments with you guys, so yeah. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Alright, take care, bye.